wanted to talk about my favorite podcast for healthcare professionals and nurses. So if you guys have been around for a minute, you know I love, like really, really love podcasts. They're definitely my favorite thing to listen to in the car. If you're ever with me, you will be serenaded by one. I listen to them when I'm around the house, when I'm doing boring things at work, like refills, and they kind of serve two purposes in my life. Half of them I listen to are just like, they give me all the feels, they're interesting stories, they're intriguing, and the other half are educational, so I listen to them to stay up to date with the current journal articles and research in my practice as a family nurse practitioner, or stay up to date with nursing stuff. So today I wanted to tell you about my healthcare related podcasts that I listen to. I found them to be super informative. I literally listen to them all the time. So naturally I thought I would share them with you. And hopefully you'll get a kick out of them too and get to learn a few things along the way. Before we dive into that real quick, I just want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. If you've never heard of Skillshare, it's an online video community where pretty much you go on, you type in something you're interested in learning about, and they have more than 25,000 different types of videos that will teach you things in your downtime. So I've found this to be a really good de-stressor and something to kind of do for myself in my downtime as my me time to go and actually learn something. Last week, I know I told you I was working on making like pretty hand lettering things, which is going swimmingly. And this week I'm tackling my DSLR camera because it's been sitting in my closet for about 5 years and it has a lot of knobs on it and I truly don't know what to do with it. And I'd like to learn so that Joe's not the only one taking pretty pictures, and maybe I'll post to Instagram more than twice a month. But they have classes on seriously everything, whether you want to learn how to cook something, speak a different language, learn how to use your fancy camera or your iPad. But I promise there's probably something you too can learn. Super duper easy to use. Obviously I use it, you can use it too. And it's really affordable at less than $10 a month with a yearly subscription. But if you want to try it for free, the first 500 subscribers that click on my link in the description box below will get 2 months free of the premium version, and you can just go learn all the things. So go check it out if you want to learn some new fun things you can do in your you time, and keep your eyeballs out for maybe some better pictures that might come to you via Instagram by me eventually. All right, now for a different type of learning through the podcasts. Let's start with podcasts geared towards nurses. So the first podcast for nurses that I've been into lately is called the Nightingale Podcast, and that's hosted by a woman named Dakota. She's a nurse and a pediatric nurse practitioner student. And on her podcast, she interviews a tons of different types of nurses, nurse practitioners, all the different nursing things in the nursing field, and they go into detail like how they got there, you know, what are the requirements to get there, what are the steps, what could you do if you want to do it, kind of an overview of what they do. So if you're an aspiring nurse especially, this is, or a nurse and you're just like, kind of like my job, but like maybe I could do something else, this is awesome because it's opened my eyes to so many careers I didn't even really honestly know about. So that is super great, and you get lots of tips and advice from the people along the way. She also has a series where she'll do like a solo show where she talks about kind of career development and resumes and all the things to kind of just developing your career and moving forward in the nursing profession. She's got a ton of really great insight, and it's definitely a good one. And the second nursing podcast I listen to is called the Working Nurse Podcast. You guys might know Nurse Nicole from Instagram. It's her and a nurse she used to work with when she worked in the ICU, and they just talk about stuff they see at work and challenging topics they encounter, you know, a lot of some ethics stuff, just all sorts of, you know, just it's a really good general nursing one where their topics are very broad, they're very honest, and it's really good insight if you're thinking of like, do I want to be a nurse? They talk about how it like really is really raw. So that one is a great one as well. Those are really my two nursing ones. I don't know of a ton of other ones. There are probably other ones out there, so holler at me down below and let me know what they are. The rest of these are going to be geared towards nurse practitioners or healthcare providers, and I'll give a little disclaimer, I work in family medicine, so some of these are geared towards that, but a lot of them are kind of broad. In general, you could work in whatever field and these would fit you. So the first one in this category, American Family Physician Podcast. Now this takes, American Family Physician is obviously a journal. It's a subscription that you can get and they mail it to your house. I just do the podcast version where they go over and highlight a lot of the different articles in that journal and they talk about them. So that kind of gives you some up-to-date, you know, hey, here's the latest research in family medicine. And then at that point, if you're more interested, you could always go and dive into the actual subscription in the journal, which is the method I usually go with. Is if I'm like, ooh, I really want to learn about that, I can go learn about it. But this gives you a really good overview of like family medicine in a nutshell. And they have good banter back and forth. It's pretty entertaining. So this is a really good one I would definitely recommend. Second podcast here is Reach MD. So this is a collection of podcasts. There are many different types. This is a good one no matter what specialty you're in, because when you go to subscribe to it, pick the ones that are interesting to you. So like I subscribe to Reach MD's family medicine, women's health, pediatric, and adult and geriatric, but they have topics on literally everything. You just pick which ones you're interested in, and they provide you with information on those topics. Like I said, a lot of these are based on journal articles, kind of like the updates that are coming out in the field related to that. They also interview specialists in those areas and give you practice tips. So those are helpful as well. It's a little bit drier on the material side, but very, very helpful. Third is the Ciders Internal Medicine podcast, which is also very entertaining, but they really do a good job of diving deep on internal medicine stuff. They interview a lot of specialists, but then ask, hey, what could we as primary care providers do in terms of this complex disease that we won't be managing the nitty gritty of, because you're the endocrinologist, but like, what can we do on our end? What should we look for? What complications do you definitely want sent to you? It gives you a really good idea, because you always kind of want to know, like, I wonder what they want me to know, and this tells you what they want you to know. So it's been super helpful. They also have some times when they dive deep into diagnostic reasoning. So they'll present a case and then they dive deep into it. So they kind of walk through how they reason through figuring out all the differentials and come ultimately up with their assessment. So those are really, really interesting and a great learning opportunity. The fourth is primary care updates. Obviously, it's just exactly what it sounds like. They go through all the major journal articles, give you the information and the latest updates in the field to just help you stay up to date with all your information. Fifth is Med Geeks. Now this is run by a PA who is an emergency room PA, and he focuses a lot on acute topics, but I found it really helpful to just understand disease processes in general, warning signs I should be looking for to know to send people, like, oh, you definitely got to go to the ER with that. He does a lot of really good physical assessment tips and also walks you through cases where he's like, I saw this, let's walk through the case together, and then gives you pointers on acute disease. So I find it helpful in primary care. If you're in emergency room or urgent care, this would also be hugely helpful. They're very short, easy to listen to. He does a really great job, and that's a good one. Next is Peer View. And this one is, I will admit, like driest of all of them. It is packed with information. It is very technical. It's great information, but sometimes it can be a bit hard, honestly, to understand, because you're just like, if you don't know a lot about that topic, it doesn't glaze over and give you the background. It just assumes you're going in with knowledge. But if you do have some knowledge, it is fascinating. So that one's a good one to kind of pick and choose different topics that you actually know something on and want to expand your knowledge. It's not the best to just kind of wade through casually, because you really gotta like think and be like into it. But amazing information, very high level, super smart teachers on there, but just kind of go into it knowing like, I'm gonna have to concentrate, okay? This isn't the time to have your toddler screaming in the back of the car while you're like kind of listening with one ear. No, you need both ears and like your brain. And the last one in kind of the general provider scheme is just some podcasts for advanced practitioners. This is run by 2 family nurse practitioners, and their podcast is also super broad. They talk about general provider stuff, so like billing and coding, how to charting tips, how to streamline that, challenges you kind of see in the workforce, and then just general healthcare topics. They've interviewed like respiratory therapists to get their input on things. They interview specialists in their field. So they have a really broad, neat podcast that I find really entertaining and informative. One thing that you may want to know going into this one is they do swear. So if that's something that's not your jam, this might not be your thing. But as long as and maybe not with kids in the car, but it is a super informative podcast. They pack a lot in there, and I've been really liking that one lately. And I wanted to just wrap up with 2 podcasts that I've been loving that are focused on women's health. These are both excellent resources in their field, and I'm so glad they exist. First is Britt and Steph at Your Cervix, and that name just gives me a giggle. And they are 2 PAs that work in women's health, and they cover just a ton of really great women's health topics. Birth control, how to troubleshoot birth control, yeast infections, BV, all the things that you see as a women's healthcare provider. They just kind of go through it, explain the up-to-date treatment guidelines and assessment and everything that you do to manage it. And they're funny, and it's just a good time all around if you're into women's health. So definitely recommend that one. And the second one I just discovered, it is brand new. It is called What's Up With Your Down There Again. Thank you, Women's Health, for just, all the other ones are like very technical names, and these ones are just awesome. So Women's Health, way to nail the podcast names. It's hosted by a nurse midwife, and she just covers very similar topics. It's a lot of education about different things with women's health. Very informative. Again, it's very new, so I think we're just in the beginning stages of exploring what it's gonna be, but I've listened to a couple episodes, and it's been a wealth of knowledge. So highly recommend those if you deal with women's health. All right, guys, and that wraps up my 2019 podcast I'm listening to right now. I think we'll do this annually, because I'm sure podcasts change and things change, and I'll pick up new ones, and you guys are gonna recommend new ones, and I'm gonna love them. So this is my 2019 version. Hope this was helpful for you. If it was, and you're interested in more content like this, I do nursing and NP related videos on Tuesdays, and I have a vlog on Saturdays where I just document my life as an FNP in and out of work. So if you're into that, consider subscribing below. I'd love to have you. And head over to Instagram where you can message me, we can chat, and I post oodles of stuff of like what I see at clinic throughout the week and what I'm learning over there. Once again, don't forget to go out and check out that link for Skillshare down in the description box below if you want to check out and learn new things in a non-podcasty format. And our question of the week, you probably already guessed it. What are your favorite podcasts? It can be healthcare, non-healthcare related ones, but for sure, make sure to shout out to me if you have a different healthcare one that you love and I don't know about it yet, because you can never have too many podcasts. I'm like a month behind. That's how many I have, and I listen to them constantly, but there's always room for more. All right, guys, thanks so much for hanging out today. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Bye.